Welcome back, and this lesson we'll be talking about intervals. In our previous lesson, we talked about the most basic interval that we have, and that is the half step and the whole step. And all of our intervals are comprised of half steps and whole steps. So in this particular video, we're going to talk about the interval. An interval is the distance between any two notes. I'll give you that definition there. Interval is the distance between any two notes. When we count intervals, and we'll talk about this in just a minute, I'll show you what I'm talking about. In counting intervals, you include the letter name of the starting note as well as the letter name of the ending note. And you may be like, I have no idea what letters I'm starting on. Well, that's fine. We'll talk about that as well. But that is how we count intervals. So I'm going to try to keep this simple, depending on what accidentals you have in your interval will determine the size of the interval. But that can get a little complicated. So we're going to try and keep it really simple right now. So I'm going to switch back to the keyboard here and try to keep my hands out of it as much as possible while putting them down here. So an interval is, as we said, the distance between any two notes. And I'm going to zoom in here. So we're just going to pick a note at random. We're just going to start with C here. And we're going to talk about the distance between. So since we're starting on C, you already know this is A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then we repeat on the 8th note or the octave. Okay, so we're just going to pick this note at random, and I'm going to go, okay, I'm going to go C, D, E, F. Okay, I have a C, a D, an E, and an F. That is the interval of a fourth. I count 1, 2, 3, 4. That is the interval of a fourth. Okay? Oops. So we have the interval of a fourth here. If I change that and I go C, D, E, F, G, A, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tones involved, 6 letter names involved. This is the interval of a sixth. Okay, we're going to do something real simple. We're going to start over here. We're going to start on C and go down to B. That is the interval of a second. First, second. Okay, so this is a second. And I will say the intervals are always designated by ordinal numbers. Okay, we have, normally we would say 1, 2, 3, 4. But when you're talking about intervals, it's first, second, third, fourth, etc. All the way up to however many it is that you need. Okay, so most intervals that you're going to see in music are going to be 1 to 8. Okay, or a second to an eighth, an octave. You will see ninths from here to here, which you can't reach that, but you do have intervals like that occasionally in voicing. 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, etc. You can have those types of chords. Now, typically, they're not spread apart that far. They're written so that they're closer together, but that's a whole nother lesson. I don't want to confuse you. So that is an interval. It's the distance between any two notes. So we're going to stick with simple intervals right now. Just one, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh octave. Okay? I want to also show you what they look like on the page. So I've got my flashcards here, if they'll stay up. Okay, this is a set of flashcards that I've had for years. I think they're Alfred. I think Alfred Music Company makes those. But this is an interval. And you're like, oh boy, I don't even know what these things are. Okay, this is a melodic interval. There are different designations of interval. This one is called melodic because the notes are played separately. You play this note, and when you read music, you read from left to right, just like you would in a book. I'm going to move this down here because it's not going to stay there. So when you read music, you read from left to right as you go. So you would play this note first, and then this note. This is called a melodic interval. You're not playing them at the same time. That is what it looks like. This is also the interval of a fourth. And you say, how do you know that? And we'll talk about lines and spaces now. As we do lines and spaces, everybody's heard lines and spaces, count your lines and spaces, whatever. There are a set of 5 lines and 4 spaces in each staff. This is a double staff, or the grand staff, as we call it in music. So you have 5 lines. Here's the first, second, third, fourth, fifth. There's a line through this note. And I found this very interesting. I was at the Smithsonian Institute for American History, I believe it was, years and years ago, and they had an exhibit on the piano. And I found out that at that point, when they first started writing music, that all of these lines were all squished together with one line in the middle, which is designated by middle C. But they found it very hard to read, so they made middle C kind of the dividing line, and they put 5 lines up here and 5 lines down here with a space in between to make it easier to read. And I was like, that's probably a really good idea, because having, 11 lines all squished together, it would be very difficult indeed. So they have separated it. Middle C, the line here goes through the note, and it's invisible, but middle C is the line between these. So you have each line is a third apart. Okay, so from middle C with the line in it to this first line is a third. All right, so I'm going to move this again, move it over here. Okay, so we're going to go to middle C, and to that first line, we're going to go up a third. Okay, from this first line here to the second line is another third. Okay, and then to the middle line is another third, and etc. going up. Okay, same way going down. If we went the opposite way, middle C to the first line below would be a third. Then from that one to the next line is a third, and the next one, etc. Okay, so I hope I'm not totally confusing you there. So if I were to play this interval, which is actually a fourth, I would play middle C and then F. I would not play them at the same time. This is a melodic interval. Now I'm going to go over here and show you another interval. Now this is in the bass clef. You see how that the notes are aligned over one another and have the same stem. This line walking down the side. This is called the stem. This is the note head. Okay, they're aligned one over top of another, and they have the same stem. That means they're played together. This is called a harmonic interval, or one that gives harmony. Now, it's not a very pleasant sounding harmony. This is the interval of, let's count it. Okay, so here's a space. Count 1. The line is the next one. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then this is in the space above the line, 7. This is an interval of a seventh. C, D, E, F, G, A, B. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Interval of a seventh. It's a very dissonant interval, but doesn't change the fact. So we can flip to a different one. Okay, now here we have the interval of D, this is D, E, F, G, okay? D, E, F, G. This is the interval of a fourth. Another thing to note is that when it goes from a line to a space or a space to a line, either way, it is an even interval. It's going to be a 2, a 4, a 6, and an octave. That is always the case. If it goes from line to line or space to space, like this one, it's going to be an odd numbered interval. This is a third. You start on E, and then there's F is the line between, and then G is the space above. So this is a third. Okay. This number goes from, all right, we already know it's even because it goes from a line to a space. And this is the interval of a sixth. And as you work on your note reading skills, learning to read intervals, either harmonic, like this, where they're played together, or melodic, like this, where they're played separately, you'll be able to read, you say, okay, line or space to line, okay, that's a 6, and your eye will start to adjust, and you'll be able to identify what your intervals are, okay? And then you'll look at this, and you'll say these are closer together. This is a third from C to E. So intervals are very, very important in learning to read and play music. And this may be a lot of information, but if you have any questions or you don't understand something, need it clarified further, I'd be glad to do that. So thank you for joining me this time.